Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to On the Mic with Mike. It is the premier business radio program around. I'm your host, Mike King. I appreciate you being here with me. The views expressed here are mine. I have no connection to, support of, agreement with any other host, information, or ads on the station. I don't work for the station. My program just airs here on a daily basis. So join me as this cutting edge show. We uplift the community and showcase RVA in a different way. I'd like to thank our show sponsors, Tom Childry, the credit card guy. If you have credit card merchant issues, Tom Childry is the man. He's been doing it for more than 25 years. He can help you get paid faster, smoother, and he knows everyone who's out there who it makes sense to know. We're going into 2022. There's some credit card merchant service issues. Tom Childry can help you with. Andy Taylor and Junk Luggers. If you have things around the household that you need removed, give Andy Taylor a call. That's everything from hot tubs to bikes. He can help you move things, but he can't help you move people. Don't call him. If you need people going from your house, don't call Andy Taylor and Junk Buggers. We'd also like to thank Mama Michelle's Cafe, Best Cafe Southside Richmond. So we're here with a very important topic. It is 2022. You would think that some of the shenanigans were left in 2021, but oh no, no, no. We got a good friend from the EEOC with us here today. Mr. Thomas Colclough is here, as well as Emily Simpkins. Welcome to the program, folks.
Hey, thanks so much for having us on, Mike.
So before we got started, I thought that the world had gotten a better place. Everyone was happy. Can't we all just get along? And sir, here you come with, there's some stuff going on out there that our listeners need to hear about. One is COVID. We know that one. But you're also here to talk about harassment. Where do we start? It's a big topic. Where do we start? We want to start with harassment?
Yeah, let's start with harassment.
Okay.
And one of the things, Mike, that a lot of folks don't know is there is a legal standard for harassment. You know what it is and how we investigate it. Again, sadly, harassment cases have gone up even during COVID. But just to let folk know that Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, it prohibits discrimination based on race, color, sex, religion, national origin, and retaliation. And all of the other statutes that we also deal with, prohibit discrimination, the Equal Pay Act, Age, Americans with Disabilities Act, and the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. All of them have a component that prohibit harassment in the workplace. Unfortunately, as we were talking a little earlier, is that even with COVID and people teleworking, a great many people teleworking at home and just working using Zoom and other social media platforms, that harassment has continued to be on the rise. One of the reasons why we think this occurs is this based on the culture, because a workplace's culture is the engine that drives, inclusion, is the engine that's going to drive diversity, but it is also the engine that drives harassment in the workplace, if an employer doesn't deal with it. And today, we just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what is our number one harassment issue that we deal with, which is sexual harassment, and the other is racial harassment. And just to talk about what are the pitfalls and, how folk can prevent it and what they should do if they're ever, involved in a situation of harassment.
Really quickly, can you give our listeners an idea? So you guys are friends of the program. You've been on before. Give our listeners an idea of what the EEOC is, who you are, and how do people engage you if I think I've been done wrong?
Okay, absolutely. Well, EEOC, we are a federal civil rights law enforcement agency. And what we do is we enforce laws, federal laws that prohibit workplace discrimination. And again, that discrimination is based on race, color, sex, religion, national origin, age, disability, or genetic condition. The other thing that EEOC does, in addition to investigating charges and complaints of employment discrimination, is we also provide outreach, education, and training about the federal laws that we enforce. The best way for a person to always get in contact with us is at our website at eeoc.gov. Or if a person feels like they need to file a complaint with our agency, they can always go into our public portal. And I like to just say, Mike, that Easiest way for me to get to it is just go EEOC public portal, or they can call us at 1-800-669-4000.
So, and you're out of the Charlotte area. So Charlotte area covers Virginia as well?
That is correct. We like to pride ourselves in the Charlotte district of saying that we're the largest district within EEOC, and EEOC has 15 districts spanning across the country. But the Charlotte district, we provide services in Virginia, North Carolina, and about 50% of South Carolina.
When a person, at what point does it rise to the level of, I need to contact the EEOC because something's not right? And I've talked to the supervisor, I've talked to the owner, and what's that process like?
Well, Mike, you know what? Those are great questions. And one of the things is that I like to start out with saying that there are really like three different levels, when we start talking about harassment. One is, let's define what is harassment. Okay, well, it can be a physical or verbal actions that take place or directed against an individual, but they have an adverse effect upon a person's working ability to work. When we think about it, we look at two types. It's either going to be a hostile work environment, or it's going to be what we call vicarious liability. Hostile work environment is typically done with coworkers, one coworker harassing another coworker. Vicarious liability is always done with a supervisor. But when I mentioned that there are really like three levels, let's be honest, if we have someone who is a owner of an organization, well, typically who gets to tell the owner what to do? Nobody.
Nobody.
Nobody. So if the owner is committing the harassment, we're going to say that the owner is automatically liable of the harassment that's going on. Then we can have a supervisor / manager type harassment, and that's the vicarious liability. And what has occurred is the Supreme Court basically stated with vicarious liability, the employer can avoid being liable for the harassment if two things occur. That is, one, does the employer have a mechanism, such as a policy, that says we prohibit harassment? And two, that the employee must take advantage of that policy. So one of the things that I always say to workers is this, that when you get hired, don't just put the handbook in your back pocket or throw it in a closet at home. You really need to know exactly what's in that handbook, because if there is a harassment policy in there that says who you need to complain to if you're being harassed, you've got to adhere to that policy, especially if it's a manager or supervisor doing the harassment. And the third level of harassment is the coworker / a vendor conducting, harassing someone. And that's a little different, because if it is a coworker, say a third party harassing, the employer is liable if they knew or should have known about the harassment.
So because of the vendor or the coworker, the owner or the business is not having a good work environment, and that makes them liable for whatever comes about.
Right, especially if they know about it. And many times, does an employer know about it? I'd say yeah, unless they, wearing a blindfold on. Because again, let's say that supervisor, walks past 2 or 3 people, they're making racist jokes. Well, the supervisor just can't continue to the water fountain and pretend they didn't hear it, because now they knew, meaning they need to take immediate and appropriate action to shut that down very quickly. And typically what we see with hostile work environment situations is that it becomes that culture that people think that making jokes or comments, that it's okay. And it's not really okay. And sometimes that the person who's being harassed might laugh at the jokes, but you know how it is. Sometimes we laugh, not because we're not offended. We laugh because we're just trying to get along and trying to survive.
That is true. So we're in a digital time now. And when I'm talking to him, like, come on, man, you're saying people up there acting crazy on Zoom. On Zoom calls?
On Zoom calls.
Okay, come on. You got to give it to our listeners. What the heck is happening on Zoom out there in the world?
Well, there have been Zoom calls in which people have exposed themselves. Zoom calls in which, sexual comments have, or innuendos have been made, such as, either verbally or inside the chat box, all those kind of things going on. Also posting of pictures and things like that, just really unreal. And you would think that, why would someone do something like that on a Zoom call or something like that? However, what I have learned, with almost 30 years at Eeoc, is that just when, as we were talking about, Mike, just when you think you've seen everything,
here comes one down there like, not that.
Yeah, like not that, and it goes to the next level, and it's really sad because, again, most people, I think what they're trying to do is they're just trying to go to work to earn a living, and they're not expecting to be harassed. But of course, in this, in the environment that we live in, people got to have a job, and sometimes people don't report the harassment about what's going on. And we've seen some real, even before COVID and with COVID going on, because there are many employees who are back inside the work environment. We've had cases of people that are inside the work environment. And just if I can just throw out, Mike, that this is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. We've had cases dealing with human trafficking in which employees have been subjected to egregious, sexual harassment, forced to have sex, even to the point of rape. I know I was speaking to Emily last week about a case that I had that we were working on, in which the person, they named 3 things: sexual harassment, sexual assault, and rape. And those are things that we deal with many times at EEOC. And of course, we deal with the sexual harassment aspect, and we will provide counseling to the person if they decide they want to go to the police and file a complaint.
Yeah. On the mic with Mike, we're here with the good folks from the EEOC. Emily, really quickly, can you guys touch on, does it make a difference size-wise for a company that you guys deal with? Is there a difference between an employer who has, say, 3 or 4 employees as opposed to a big organization? Does it matter to EEOC?
Tom, I'll let you handle this one.
Okay. Well, Mike, it does, because with EEOC, typically, especially under Title VII, the employer has to have 15 or more employees for each calendar workday of 20 or more weeks in the current or the preceding year. The other thing in asking that question, Mike, great question, because with larger employers, guess what you see many, many times? They have policies in place, whereas smaller employers, a lot of times, they don't. And what I would always recommend to every employer, put a policy in place. Let people know that harassment will not be tolerated in the workplace. I know I'm looking at my screen now of a presentation that I did, a while back, and it stated, what do harassers look like? Well, you can't tell. You can't tell. I mean, nobody is walking around wearing
with a sign on them says, "Yeah, I'm a harasser." No.
Exactly, and you don't know. So you have to always be vigilant and aware of what's going on in the work environment. So one of the things we tell employers do training on harassment, so that the employees know exactly what the stance is of the employer, and if they feel that a person has been harassed, that they know exactly what things they can do.
All righty, sir. So we're here talking about harassment. The rest of the world and what everyone's talking about is COVID. And here, we started off with harassment, thinking that COVID would be it. How does harassment trump COVID questions? Because everyone in the world has questions about mandates, what the employer can know, what they can tell me as an employee. And we start off the first part of this, that you're saying that the people out there acting up on the harassment side to even trump the COVID questions. We're in a sad state, sir. Please help us.
We're going to try. Well, one of the things we always tell folk, again, if you feel like you're being harassed, if your company has a policy, report the harassment. The one thing that we would always say, though, is to always know the EEOC, we have our doors open and we're ready to listen and hear. And for employers, we want to make sure that, if you don't know how to educate your staff or your employees, call on us. And Emily is our outreach coordinator, and we definitely will come in and help do training with the employer on harassment. The other thing, though, Mike, as you mentioned with COVID, believe it or not, there are employees who have been harassed, or at least alleged they've been harassed because they, did not want to be vaccinated.
Okay.
And harassment based on religion, harassment based on their medical condition, and things like that. So it, even, with a serious condition such as COVID, folk find a way even to harass in those scenarios also.
Okay, so what are the steps when I have some type of issue with my company as far as COVID mandate testing, all those things? What are the steps to help the situation get better?
Okay. Well, one thing that people need to understand, and that is, can an employer have a vaccine mandate? The answer is, yeah, they can. Company ABC could say, we want everybody in our company to be vaccinated. But the story does not stop there. There's still more to the narrative. Because what if ABC has someone who says, I can't be vaccinated because of my religion? Well, in that scenario, the company has to listen to them and determine whether or not they can provide that religious accommodation. The same goes with medical conditions, because there are some people, that based on their medical condition, they might state, hey, I can't not take a vaccination. Company needs to listen, determine whether or not can they accommodate. The accommodation might be, hey, while you're at work, you're going to have to wear your mask. If you're here for 12-hour shift, you're going to have to wear your mask for the 12-hour shift. Can't take it off unless you're eating lunch. That might be the accommodation. One of the things that I always like to think of with accommodations is this, though. Accommodation, is like when we were kids, small kids. It's about using your imagination to think of the what if we could do this right here, so that the person could continue to enjoy working and the benefits of employment. But let's say that an employee and an individual states, hey, I've made the employer aware I can't take the vaccination because of my religion or my medical condition. What can I do? Well, they can contact EEOC for us to investigate that. Question is, Mike, have the cases based on vaccine mandates, what's happening? We've seen a serious influx and increase of charges based on, COVID mandates, vaccine mandates. And we could expect that number is going to continue to rise.
Okay, so we go through the process, we go through the system. Let's talk a little bit about, because sometimes people get nervous and scared to talk to government agencies about retaliation. What do we need to do to protect ourselves, or say to a person that the thought process is there, but in reality, this is what we offer to safeguard against that?
Right. Thank you, Mike. Great question. And the thing is that when we think about retaliation has two components. And a person can allege retaliation either if they oppose a protected situation, such as my opposition is I've told the employer I can't get vaccinated for religion or or medical condition. Well, that's opposition. Or do they participate? Sally told me that she couldn't get vaccinated for X, Y, or Z, or Sally told me she was being harassed, and I went to the employer on Sally's behalf, and the result, adverse action. Well, all of the statutes that EEOC enforces has a retaliation provision that prohibits retaliation because a person, wants to, exercise their rights, because we all have the right to make a complaint, about our work situation. And if the employer takes, action because the person makes that, exercises that right, please let EEOC know, because we take retaliation very seriously. As a matter of fact, if someone visits our website, we have COVID information on our website, and just recently it was updated to make sure that folk understand our stance about prohibiting retaliation. And again, they can reach our website, eeoc.gov.
So you're saying mandates are legal, but there are ways to work with it to find a solution.
That is correct. And that's what we would always just say to any employer. Don't ever let the answer to anything be no. One of the things that we do at EEOC sometimes, we always say, it's always best to give the lawyer's answer. It depends. It depends. Meaning that there are no clear-cut, always absolutes. And that's why I say with employers, I would always think, how can I accommodate? How can I work around the situation to make sure that my employee enjoys the benefits of employment?
So it's Mike King. We're here with our good friends over at the EEOC. How can people find and get the information out there from you guys?
Again, the best way is going to our website, again, at eeoc.gov. Also, if anyone has any questions, Mike, me, I always put my number out there. It's at 980-296-1299. Or they can always, hit me up on my email at thomas.kokloff@eeoc.gov. But again, we are really, committed that folk understand, their rights as far as it pertains to the statutes enforced by EEOC. We also want to make sure that we educate employers, because again, believe it or not, discrimination and discrimination complaints are very expensive. And as we were, talking earlier about harassment, there are millions and millions of dollars spent every year on the prevention or the remedy to harassment complaints. And when I think of the money that is spent, I always think, wow, that could have gone into research and development. That could have gone into hiring new staff. So many different things. It could have gone to doing things for the community, because every company has a brand image, and part of that brand image is giving back. And to me, if we can just get rid of some of those things such as harassment and making sure we provide accommodations, we're in a better position, as a nation.
All right. We'd like to thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure. I guess every so often you guys swing back through and let us know as far as what's happening out there, because a lot of times employees think that employers know basically everything. And you're looking up, a lot of times employers don't know what they don't know. And as you said, it could be expensive on that learning process. So this is something that employers can look into. This is a business show, and we talk to a lot of business owners, and we try and keep them up to speed. But thank you for the information. And one last time, how can people find you guys out there once again?
They can hit us on our website at eeoc.gov, or they can call us at 1-800-669-4000.
It's always a pleasure, sir. Emily, nice to meet you. Don't be strangers. Come on back every so often and keep our good listeners informed about what's happening out there. And hopefully folks won't be acting a fool on Zoom anymore.
Sure, you're right.
That is true, because it could be painful and expensive.
Absolutely.
Right. On the Mic with Mike, we bring you the best and brightest. Thanks. Now take care, folks.
Thanks, Mike.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.